It was horrifying. It's really hard to, like, when you're in that moment, it's something you never really have expected to see.
Afraid we were going to get washed away because it seemed to be moving very fast.
I took a couple of baskets out to family and friends that I knew of. As it snowballed on Facebook, people from all across Queensland were getting involved.
There's nothing extraordinary about where I'm standing. I'm in behind the shops in the city of Toowoomba here in Queensland. It's an area where people around here work in the offices and they park their cars here during the day. And on my left is East Creek. It's a gully, a stormwater drain here in Toowoomba. But all of that changed on the 10th of January, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And what happened here was seen by people across Australia and around the world.
Oh, mate, don't, just let it go.
I returned to work on Monday the 10th after my Christmas holidays, and I was just making a lot of phone calls that day, just reconnecting with staff. And as I was making the calls, I just was watching out my office window and watching this little creek as the rain was just hammering down, and the water was just rising and rising, and it got to a point where it was higher than I'd ever seen it in my years here in Toowoomba. And I just pulled out my phone and started filming.
So as you're filming, you're seeing cars getting washed down this creek. What was it like for you watching that unfold?
It was horrifying. It's really hard to, like, when you're in that moment, it's something you never really have expected to see or dreamed to see in your life. And you know, you can tell from what I'm saying, it's shock, really. I mean, you cannot make what is going on what you're seeing make sense in your head. We really had no idea that this was going on elsewhere. I mean, I just thought it was the little creek out the back of work, and it was only afterwards when the rain stopped and the water started to come down and we were able to talk to some people around the place and hear on the news just how big this disaster was.
As we weep for what we have lost, and as we grieve for family and friends, and we confront the challenge that is before us, I want us to remember who we are. We are Queenslanders.
The summer of 2010-2011 will be remembered as our summer of sorrow.
What happened when I uploaded it to the internet, and it started going viral, and people all over the world started to be captured by this vision. I have never uploaded a clip to YouTube in my life, and this was the first one I'd ever done, and simply for the purpose of showing some work colleagues in Brisbane. And I was in the process of writing an email to them to say, you know, pray for us. This is what we've just been through. When the internet went crazy, when, you know, Twitter and Facebook and links to my video were flying everywhere.
How many people have watched it?
I think it's about 7 million.
After the break, we hear how David leads a team that provides ongoing support for the flood-affected community. After filming the Toowoomba floods, David Judson, who works for Scripture Union, a non-profit youth and children's organisation, manages the work of the school chaplains in the flood-affected areas.
There is a recognition in the role of chaplains that, you know, as humans, we are more than just a mind and a body, but we are spiritual beings. And chaplaincy is the unique role that addresses those spiritual needs within people. So there's about 75 chaplains in this patch, plus the district workers that support them as well.
The railway bridge at Grantham, a small town in the Lockyer Valley, has been called Ground Zero. Whilst the bridge is now repaired, the impact of the floods on those who live here is still being felt. No more so than at Grantham State School.
Teddy bear, touch the ground. Teddy bear, turn out the light. We were involved with camp with a number of leaders from Tent Hill, which is very close to the area here, and we had students on here as well. So obviously we could see that they were being affected by what they were seeing with the floods. And when I got home, my own home, it was a very sunny day and you wouldn't even know it had rained. So I just felt very strongly that I needed to go and do something to help out. Not long after we started working in the school, we did discover that there were 15 schools that were in the flood-affected areas that the federal government has given funding for 12 months to assist with a chaplaincy service.
When you're helping as a chaplain in the school, what is your primary role with the kids? What are you trying to help the kids do?
Primarily, we try to offer extra support. So whether that's one-on-one with a student that's struggling, some of them have lost homes in the floods, some of them have lost family members, so they're going through quite a struggle. Usually I find with primary age students it emerges through behaviour. So where they would normally be settled, they're a little bit more unsettled. They don't sort of verbally just come out with, this is what I've been through. Okay, you ready? And I'll go 1, 2, 3 and you jump. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Go, Ruby, jump. The principal here has been involved with a small cluster of schools previously that had a chaplain. So she was very positive and knew the process and was very delighted to have that happening in the school.
When the floods swept through this area of the Lockyer Valley on January 10, this whole district was inundated. In fact, this house was under almost to the level of its roof. At home here was Rebecca and her sister and 2 cats. Her parents were away at work and had no idea of the situation. Rebecca and her sister, to get away from the floods and to make sure that they were safe, had to climb up on this fernery and onto the roof. You're in the house, the water's coming above the floorboards. You decide you really need to get on the roof, is that right?
Yep. Basically, we thought, get cats, get out. We actually ended up going out the side door, and then we tried to get on the roof from there using furniture, but that didn't work. We ended up going all the way around the house, across the fernery, onto the shed, on the shed, back across the fernery and onto the roof of the house. We were afraid we were going to get washed away because it seemed to be moving very fast. But our yard's actually surrounded by very tall, strong trees, so we thought, contingency plan, grab onto a tree if we do get washed away and hopefully, you know, that won't fall over.
Were your parents worried about you and your sister?
Yeah, because they heard from us when maybe the water was up to our knees and then the power cut out. About 4 hours later was when they heard from us, so they had all that time to worry if we were dead or if we were safe. We only spent about 2 hours on the roof, and then we were up there for a little bit after the water went down as well, so probably only about 2 hours it took to come up and go back down.
Tell me about the clean-up. You actually were cleaning up and then you had a lot of people turn up.
Yeah, we had so many volunteers from all around so far. There's like down from the Sunshine and the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Toowoomba, and also from around where we live. And we actually got our entire house cleaned out got the walls pulled down in about 3 or 4 days because so many people just turned up with shovels and brooms and went, what can we do? And like they bought food, they bought blankets, they bought clothes, they bought everything that they thought we could possibly need. It's just unbelievable that they would think of us like that.
After the break, how one chaplain helped organise a community to provide a much needed resource.
We haven't really met since late last year when we had that big food dig.
The school that Rebecca attends in the Lockyer Valley has 2 chaplains who, together with the school's own support team, have been working with students in the peer support network to help the recovery process.
I basically was there, just told them I was there for them and that.
So, yeah.
Sometimes it wasn't actually that their house was flooded, but the roads were so washed out that they were isolated for weeks and weeks. In fact, up at Junction View, the school bus has only started going up, picking up students there in the last week. That brings a whole gamut of emotional and physical things too, because there's farmers half an hour drive away at Junction View that are holding the fort on the farm. The kids haven't been able to get into school unless they've stayed with relatives in Gatton, and so mum and the kids are in town. They only see dad, once a week. Everything's changed, and some of them are anxious. You get a storm, and it can be a month after the flood. You get a storm, and they're on edge. There was one day a couple of weeks ago, Pauline was looking at the Weather Bureau site so she could tell a girl, look, it's okay, the storm's actually passed now, this bit of rain's tail end, no one got much rain, it's okay, everything's going to be all right, because some of them are really, to use the word spooked, some of them are really spooked.
Further up the Lockyer Valley at Hatton Vale, Chaplain Barry Forbes is dealing with students with similar concerns.
The kids have been, they're just getting so much of this flooding and damage around, and some of them have been involved. The parents have come to me and said, well, young Johnny lost a friend in the flood. Others have watched videos and seen people flowing down the river, trying to grab for trees. So they're obviously having a struggle mentally and emotionally, and so they get sent to me, especially the teachers will send them to me if they see them acting out, and they get an opportunity to just sort of wind down and have a chat.
Obviously there are kids in houses like the one we see behind us here. What do you perceive as some of the issues that they're facing?
Well, financial is the big one. They have to not only at times pay the mortgage on the houses that have been damaged, especially if they own, and then they have to find another place to live with renting. One of the biggest issues I see is the loss of possessions. The floodwater just came in and just gutted the house, took all their possessions. They lose photos, toys, and things that are sentimental and close to them, and a lot of them aren't replaceable.
Barry's contacts into the local community were key to helping him support a single mother and her 2 children who had lost almost everything.
As soon as I arrived to the school, the administrative officer, Debbie, she said that she had a mother that was in a bit of strife and said that she had a few problems. Would I be able to help her? And she gave me her phone number. So I gave Michelle a call, and throughout the conversation found out that her needs were a car, and she'd actually suffered in the floods because of the fact that her car was washed away and damaged and written off, and the insurance money that she had on that didn't even cover the loan, and then her house was damaged and she had to move out and she lost her contents. So I rang Cess and asked him if he had any cars, and he did, but unfortunately it was a manual. She needed an automatic. And Cess, you're pretty open to be involved, is that right?
When Barry said about a car, yeah, we had some manuals and no good, have to have an automatic. Then a friend of mine, Howard Napper, he had an automatic at home that he's been trying to sell. So then I got Howard and Barry to meet up. We had to do work to get through roadworthy, so we done all that, and then we've issued Michelle with a free service ticket for in 6 months' time.
What was sort of Michelle's response to this happening?
Well, she was overwhelmed to start with, the generosity in the community. She kept trying to give thanks to me, and I said, look, I just facilitated a few things, the networking in the community, and brought it all together. But even with Howard, he was telling stories how it rolled on, and he got a free windscreen donated to the car. Some second-hand tyres were fitted for free, and it just went on, and it was really good. And we also had the finances coming and people donating money to the cause as well.
Other than Brisbane and Toowoomba, the other major city to be impacted by the floods was Ipswich. We're here to talk to Paul Pasali, the Mayor of Ipswich, about the whole experience.
You get into mayor and you're dealing with people, all of a sudden this natural disaster hits your city, there's no rule book, and you start to deal with things, the clean up, and that was good actually. The part when the floodwaters hit and things started to happen, I was able to deal with that because I knew exactly what to do: clean up, get people into houses, make people safe, and start dealing with that. It was later on that started causing the problem. When people have been displaced from their home and it's now 10 weeks and they feel that they've been a bit isolated, the depression, the suicidal tendencies, the psychological problems are starting to set in. from my point of view, that's where I need the help the most, and that's where the chaplaincy has made a tremendous difference. Kids that have been displaced from their home, it's all right to have all these people helping them, but they're not in their own bedroom. It is having a psychological effect, and they don't understand it, and that's where the emotion is starting to creep in the city, and that 10-week to 12-week period for our city is so crucial.
What sort of work do you see the chaplains doing in this period of time?
Well, as a mayor, you're running around trying to raise money, you're trying to, get people to donate to the city, you're trying to get as many resources, donated furniture to help people rebuild homes. But it's that spiritual guidance, it's that important of dealing with the emotions that I haven't had the time to do, and I'm starting to see that effect. In the schools is a tremendous support. What they've done has been able to engage with the young kids, get them to talk, get them to feel the emotion, and that tells me that they're being looked after emotionally, because if you don't, I can tell you that's where the depression and all the problems will start to set in.
After the break, how a chaplain's idea to provide practical help has grown into a statewide project. Throughout the flood disaster in southeast Queensland, we've seen people in all sorts of need. And the school chaplains have responded to that need, not by massive things like rebuilding houses, and not just with dealing with kids in schools, but they've taken their role in the school, they've linked that with local churches, and they've found out about families and they've helped them in all sorts of different ways. One of those ways is Chaplain Lisa and her Baskets of Hope. So Lisa, what are we doing here?
I'm putting together Baskets of Hope.
Okay, so what are the sorts of things that are in a Basket of Hope?
Essentially, everyday items. I had friends that were looking for what they could do to help on my Facebook page, and then I knew I needed to do something that was a bit bigger than me. I went to my cousin's house to try and brainstorm what that would be, and yeah, we looked at, okay, what are we going to do and how are we going to get it to people? A laundry basket seemed like the way to do that, and we just started from there. I took a couple of baskets out to family and friends that I knew of. As it snowballed on Facebook, people from all across Queensland were getting involved, and as different areas were flooding, it was spreading. So I had families in Harvey Bay and Bundaberg want to get involved, and they were driving the baskets up to Emerald and Theodore and Mission Beach and Tully as different areas were becoming flood affected.
Do you know how many baskets were given out?
There are about 3,000 reported back to me, but in the end, I will never know.
Lisa, we've seen in this show that the chaplains have actually made a big difference, not because they can't replace a whole house, but they can do the small things, and a Basket of Hope is like that, and people really appreciated that?
Yeah, it did. We weren't able to help people with the big things like the house and a car, but people were very grateful to be able to get a basket of food and a basket of essential items to help them get started again.
This is Grantham, and this is the railway bridge at Grantham. This has been referred to as ground zero of the Queensland floods disaster. Right here and in this area, lives were saved and lives were lost. This bridge will live on in Australian psyche and thinking as a symbol of all that occurred in Grantham around the floods. You know, the floods came and went in just a few hours, and yet lives were devastated by what happened, and it would take years for them to recover from those floods. Alongside of the tragedy that we saw in this area of southeast Queensland, we also saw the wonderful work of hundreds, if not thousands, of people who helped those in need, including the chaplains in schools who used their skill and their knowledge and their connections to help people get on with their lives. Alongside the story here at Grantham, one of the stories that really captured people was the story of Jordan Rice. Jordan, his mum Donna, and his brother Blake were caught in the middle of Toowoomba in the floods as they swept through the streets of Toowoomba. Their car was in danger of being taken away in the floods, and basically volunteers came and tied the car to a point to stop it being washed away. Now, while Jordan was terrified of water and couldn't swim, when the rescuer got to the car, Jordan asked, in fact begged, that Blake would be taken first. And Blake was carried back to safety by the rescuer. And before they could get back, the rope broke, the car was washed away, as were Donna and Jordan. This has really inspired Australians, and we're always inspired by stories where people give their lives for others around them. We're inspired by Anzac Day, where we see men from different areas of war who have given their lives so that we can live the life that we enjoy here in Australia. We're inspired recently with the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, where 50 workers at a nuclear plant actually volunteered to help stave off disaster for their whole nation, putting themselves in danger. And at Easter each year, we're inspired again as we're reminded that Jesus gave his life so that all humanity could be right with God. And he didn't do that just as a moral example, just to be a nice person. Jesus did that because he knew that the Father had sent him so that we can be in a relationship with God. You know, if you'd like some more information about how Easter can have an impact in your life, once you go to our website, give us your details and we'll send you a book that is going to help you. We trust that you've been inspired by this story, inspired by the work of the chaplains with the Scripture Union here in Queensland, and we trust you have a wonderful Easter.
The entire state is now rallying together to rebuild communities and lives.